Hello guys, so welcome to our video today. So today we have an interesting one for you. We are going to show you the entire solar setup, okay? So we have this small panel to help us do the connection. We're going to connect this panel to the inverter, and then we'll connect the battery also to the inverter. And this is a lot of work, so I have my senior colleague here to guide me and work with me as well.
Okay, today I will assist Max for the connection step by step. Let's go.
Okay, so today we have a lot of connections to do. So we'll start from the solar panel, okay? So for this panel, we are fortunate to have one end already fixed. This end is already soldered into the panel, to the back of the panel. And what we have to do is to connect this part of the wire. And we are going to use that to connect to this MC4 connector. This connector will go to this part of the inverter, and that's how we make the connection from the solar panel to the inverter. And to be able to do that, we need to put this wire at the end of this cable, this connecting piece over here. Okay, so for this one, it's a soldering type. We need to solder it to this metal piece, so that will be done later. I'll demonstrate it. And this is the second type. This type, you just need to fold it. There's a tool for that. I'll show you another. I'll put a link to another video where I work with this type as well. So for this type that we are using today for this demonstration, we need to solder it, and we're going to go ahead and demonstrate that. So this is the demonstration on how to connect the two cables to the MC4 connector. So we will start with the -1, and that's the blue wire. So we are going to go ahead and remove the insulation on the cable and twist it and make sure it looks as small as possible so that it can fit into the end of the pin. So as I mentioned, there are other options, but this particular connector that we are using requires a soldered connection, so we must solder it to the piece. And this is done to ensure that the connection that you are making over there is not a weak connection, because the entire solar connection is a very solid system with very little weak links. There are very little weak links in the whole solar setup. These things are rated to withstand high temperatures and bad weather conditions like storms and other things. So every connection that you make within the system must also be very rock solid. I'm sure that's why this connector was given the option to be soldered. So once you're done with that, you allow it to cool down a little and allow the connection to solidify. And then you put it inside the covering, the black part of the MC4 connector, the covering. Okay, so you can actually pull apart the whole casing for it and then push the thing very deep and lock it. Once you are done, you can also bring it back together and make sure you cover it well and screw the bottom part of it on to secure everything. So this connection is very secure. It's actually watertight. So once you are done with this, you can actually see that the thing is very strongly secured in. Same thing for the other connector, the positive connector. So we'll go ahead and do the same thing for the positive node, and we'll go ahead and remove the insulation as we did before. Then we twist it and make sure it looks as small as possible, and prepare the soldering parts. Bring in the metal piece from the MC4 connector. This is the female part of the MC4 connector. it goes in the positive side of it. So yeah. When you're dealing with these soldering machines, you need to be careful. These things are very hot, and you need to be very careful if you're doing it yourself. If your metal piece does not require soldering and just requires it being squeezed and folded, that's also fine. That's also common out there. So remember that there are two options. If you don't have the soldering machine, you should ensure that you are buying the one that doesn't require the use of a soldering machine. To let it cool down and get the casing ready. So at this point, you allow the thing to cool down, the soldered point joint to cool down, whilst you get the casing ready to be used. So as before, you try to pull it apart and get it all in about 3 pieces, and then you put them together one piece at a time. So you go ahead and put the cover on first, and then put the locking part on. Push it until you hear that lock. Yeah, so perfectly done. And then you go ahead and put the rest of the casing back on. And then you cover it up again. So after all this, your MC4 connector and its wire connection should be very well secured. If you did everything right, these should not pull apart easily. You have the positive and the negative. So this is ready to be connected to our inverter now. So let's move on to the inverter and connect it. Okay, so now both sides of the solar panel has its wiring done. The back of it is already secured as I showed you before. And now we have the MC4 connectors for this side as well. So we can go ahead and connect it to the bottom. Our connection for the solar panel is at the bottom. So we'll go ahead and connect it to the bottom. I start with the negative first, and it goes to this part. It's a really simple connection. Everything just fits together like a Lego, and once you get a hold of it, you can actually do it so easily. So this is the connection, the positive and negative. Everything is done. It's really simple. Yeah, that's basically it. Okay, just as a side note, for every inverter that you use, if you're using ours, I'll tell you the limits, but for every inverter that you use, you're supposed to be careful about the limits of the input that you can make. You know, you can join some solar panels in series and parallel and everything. So when you're doing that, when you're not just connecting a small solar panel, you're connecting a big series or a big parallel connection, you should be mindful of the limits that the inputs take. For instance, for this inverter, it can take a maximum solar panel input of, for each stream, there are 2 streams here. For each stream, you can have 250 volts and 4 kilowatts input. So when you're doing your parallel and series connections, be mindful of that. And this is for our inverter, this particular inverter. Every inverter is different, so do a little research before you do your connection. Okay? So it's time to go inside the inverter, and I'll show you the connections for the solar panel. There's AC input and output over here, and then also there's the battery connection. So let's go inside the solar panel, inverter. To do is to use this tool to remove some screws here and there. For this panel, this inverter, it's really easy if you have this tool. The first one is down. I hold it together. The second one is also down, and I can take it apart. So here we are. This is how it looks on the inside, and you guys can come and take a closer look. So we start from this side. So this side is the connection to the solar panel, and it has the charger over here. In the middle here we have the AC input, AC output. We already have this connected, and over here we have the positive and negative for the battery. So that's how it looks here. That's how the connection looks over here. So the next thing we are going to do is to connect the battery to it. So let's go. Okay, so now we are going to go ahead and connect the battery to the inverter, and my senior colleague is going to take us through. So in there is the positive and the negative. You can connect any of them first. It's really a very easy connection for this inverter. You just need to take off that bolt and cover it up. So he started with the negative one. As I said, it's a really easy connection. We have these two cables labeled red and black to make things easy for us. Over there as well, when you go closer, you can see also that there is a red and black labeling over there to make sure that you know which one is positive and which one is negative. So this is the connection that you really can't mess up. Yeah, and you just tighten it up and make sure everything looks good. So once everything looks good, we'll move on to the battery side and connect it as well. Once everything is done and you're sure that you've made all the right connections, you should cover it up and put the casing back in place. You can go ahead and screw it back just to make sure you're safe. Okay, so now we are done closing up the case for the inverter. We are going to move on to connect the battery to the inverter. So once you're ready to connect to the battery, you should make sure that the power from the battery is completely turned off. So the power button completely turned off and the circuit breaker also turned off. So now you can go ahead and do your connection. Always keep in mind to stay safe. Okay? Safety is always a priority. So just as we did for the inverter, this is also a very simple connection. And as before, this power tool is really useful. As you can see, it's a really simple connection. When you're done, always put that insulation on top. It's really important. It keeps you safe, keeps everything safe. Yeah, then we go on to connect the positive side as well. As you can see, this is a really simple connection. Once you go through it step by step, there isn't much to be missed. You go ahead and screw it down. Yeah. And once this is done, you cover it up with the insulation and your battery is ready to be turned on. And your whole setup is actually ready at this point. In terms of connection, all the vital connections have already been done. Now we have to put the system on. But one final step before we put the system on, the battery needs a way to connect and communicate with the inverter. So there's this RS485 network cable. So we are going to connect it to RS485A on our battery, and we'll go ahead and connect it. Very simple network cable connection, and make sure that we identify this as battery number 1 on the address system, and then we go ahead to the inverter and connect it as well. So for the inverter, it has this indication that this is the lithium ion connection. So we go ahead and go under that module and connect it. Yeah, so now the battery can talk to the inverter and tell it how much voltage, how much everything that is coming through the system. So the battery now can fully communicate with the inverter. Now the connection is fully completed. So it's ready to be turned on now. So at this point, everything is done. We are done with the entire connection. The solar panel has been connected to the inverter. The battery has been connected to the inverter. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on the battery right now. So I start with the circuit breaker. This one is a big boy, so big circuit breaker. Then I turn on the power. Then I come over to the inverter. I also turn on the power over here. There's a bit of about 6 seconds delay, as you can see on the countdown there. So once the battery has been turned on, the inverter has been turned on, there is one particular setting that I would like to change within the inverter. So I'll go ahead and do that. This is initially set up for lead acid batteries, but this is a lithium ion battery, so I need to change the protocol. I go ahead and hold this for some time, press and hold it for some time, go to parameter number 5, and currently it's set at AGM, so I need to change it, and I need to change it to Pylon Tech, which is the lead acid one. And once I'm done, PYL, I go back and everything is done. So this is the entire connection now. Now I can just wait for it to start giving an output. Oh, I think it has already started. Yeah, so you can come closer and see. So as we told you, we already have the AC output connected, and this is it. It's already, as you can see, the power is already flowing through. Okay, so now we have done everything, and I would like to go through it one more time. Okay, so the entire process one more time. We connected the solar panel, and these are the connections for the solar panel. We had it connected negative and positive. Be careful about that. And once we were done, we moved to the battery and we connected the battery. And before leaving the battery, we made sure that the communication cable is connected. And with regards to that, actually, you can come closer. Once you have done the right thing and the lithium-ion battery is connected, this should be blinking. This particular indicator here should be blinking. If not, you probably need to change the protocol of the battery. We'll send you a video on that. We'll make another video on that. But once everything is done, this is how it looks, and you get your power as necessary, as needed. Everything works well. If it's your phone, if it's your house, you need to power whatever you need to power, your AC output will be working. So if you guys have any questions or anything, you take the video step by step, follow it, and I'm sure it will solve all your problems. I'm sure you'll be able to set up your system. But if you have any further questions, write a comment in the video. You can also just email us and we'll get back to you. This is Orient Power. See you in the next video. Bye-bye.